An Alabama radio station asked me some interesting questions about the Todd Pettiford, Hugh Freeze, and the Auburn Tigers.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. This bonus episode, little different than normal. I sat down with Michael Bronner. He's a radio guy for WNSP down in Mobile. And he was gracious enough to let me record the interview for the purpose of putting it on Locked On Auburn. So here is that conversation.
Talked about it a little bit Monday morning. Obviously, it gets drowned out in the media cycle with football media days, but Todd Pettiford obviously makes a pretty significant mistake, gets a DUI over the weekend. Do you expect any sort of, I mean, it's 6 months before the season, so it's so crazy to say this, but do you expect any sort of punishment, whether it be even a game or two suspension by Bruce Pearl?
Possibly. I do feel pretty confident that they're handling it appropriately internally. Last night before the ambush event got started, we talked to John Cohen a little bit, and he was asked specifically about Todd Pettiford, and he's like, yep, I talked to Todd earlier today at 6:45 in the morning, and, looked him in the eye, and, I could tell he was sorry. We had this long talk about making right decisions and how important he is and how much Auburn loves him, and it's like, we need you, and you need this, and don't throw things away for doing, dumb things. So, it does sound like, it's still kind of ongoing as far as what the legal the legal implications might be for it. But from an Auburn point of view, they're handling it internally.
Zac Blackerby, Locked On Auburn. Let's talk yesterday. Hugh Freeze's name it came up a few times indirectly and directly. Lane Kiffin was asked about Hugh Freeze, and I don't know if you caught this. Brian Kelly, too, was asked by a local media member, local Baton Rouge guy, what's your handicap? And Brian Kelly said something along the lines, I had other things to do in June. From an Auburn perspective, we'll start with the golf thing. I think the golf thing has become a story because of the way they've lost a few recruits over the last month. And if they were winning on the recruiting trail, probably the golf thing would have never even been a story. But, from an Auburn perspective, what's the fan base, annoyance level of hearing about this? And then the Kiffin specifically part, I have a feeling Auburn is kind of just sick of hearing about their program via Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, I did a segment on how Monday afternoon has the potential to be pretty annoying for the Auburn Tigers with Lane Kiffin and Diego Pavia kind of going Monday afternoon.
Pavia was canned a little bit yesterday.
Yeah, no, he was, Pavia was electric for sure. As far as the golf comments, that's not why Auburn's losing recruits.
Yeah.
It's just not. You can say what you want about Hugh Freeze, and a lot of people want to because he is this lightning rod of I don't want to say controversy, but it almost feels that way because it's there's two polar opinions of the guy, both as a coach and as a human, sadly. So I don't think that effort is something you can point to Hugh Freeze and say, that's something you're not doing. I do think the effort is there. And they've been pretty consistent with their messaging as to why, this recruiting class is being impacted the way that it is. They've made it pretty clear, in my view, that Auburn has the money to offer and match the offer that other schools are for these targets. Their understanding of the rules of this new settlement is, hey, we don't think you could do that based off of what the parameters are for this fair market value stuff is. Yeah. And it sounds like if August 1st goes on and everything gets cleared and they're able to do this, they'll be like, okay, cool. Let's pony up. And John Cohen used the words, we'll jump with 2 feet, 2 feet in and all that last night. So I don't know. It's just a non-story. But the golfing thing, I think it's just people finding ways to take digs at Hugh Freeze for whatever reason.
Did you read into anything the Kiffin comment? The trolling on Twitter specifically. We've been sending fish pictures back and forth at each other. And then, of course, the golf game. Sounds like he's doing great with that. That's amazing is it all calculated from him? And
for Kiffin?
For Kiffin.
I doubt it. I don't think
he's just getting out there and saying
I don't think
stuff?
he cares about that aspect of it enough for it to be calculated. I think he's a really good football coach. I don't think he thinks that anything he does at the podium actually matters.
Do you think there's an element of the two of them are kind of tied together? Both, Hugh Freeze obviously had a lot of success at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
And not only that, but maybe you have a different opinion of what happened with Kiffin and the Auburn job. Kiffin was a name considered for it, and whether he turned it down or whether they turned him in, whatever happened.
Yeah, no, they were definitely tied for sure.
Yes, Hugh Freeze ended up with the job.
Yeah. Lane Kiffin and Auburn were definitely tied together as far as who turned down who. Like, I've heard multiple people in the know say multiple different things about it. But, yeah, and then obviously, coaching at Ole Miss, is that something that Lane has to hear about? Like, I don't know. But, I mean, what a bummer, though, the way the SEC scheduling happened for Auburn and Ole Miss to go away, because that was becoming a pretty fun rivalry. And then now with all this off-the-field stuff with Kiffin and Freeze, I hate that yearly rivalry was taken away from us.
I said it to an Ole Miss. Same thing with Alabama. When are we going to get the Mississippi schools back on the schedule for the Alabama schools?
I mean, I guess 26, right? I mean, it is wild how long they're dragging their feet. And, I mean, Sankey didn't want to tell us anything about the procedure procedure moving forward.
He didn't tell us when Media Days is next year. It was very hush-hush.
He didn't tell us anything.
Yeah, I mean, he generally doesn't, but...
I disagree. I feel like he normally gives us something.
He did say they're fully in support of expanding the NCAA tournament, so I guess 150 teams is coming there.
Which, what an interesting stance to take. I don't even think that benefits the SEC. Like, I don't really understand that.
14 teams, and the two that didn't get in were horrific last year.
We continue our conversation next right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. In fact, I can't imagine wagering anywhere other than with our friends at FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and so whether you're all about baseball under the lights or golf, there's obviously a big major this weekend, I believe. FanDuel's the best way to make everything just feel a little bit more important when you're watching your sports. And if you're already following the action, why not make it more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach this summer. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. And look, the more people I talked to at SEC Media Days this week, a lot of people still feeling the over for Auburn 7.5, according to our friends at FanDuel. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started.
Let's talk about, you brought up the August 1st deadline. We're talking to Zac Blackerby, Locked On Auburn. You brought up the August 1st thing. I've heard that a lot from Auburn fans without getting it, because frankly, with regards to the house settlement and all the financials, I just don't really care. But in the simplest terms possible, what is expected to change on August 1st that could open up that well?
August 1st is when you can make official offers on paper. So right now you can say, hey, I'm going to give you $800,000.
Yeah.
You can say that all day long. It doesn't mean anything until you can make official offers on paper in regards to rev share on August 1st.
So are they kind of just biding their time and say, all right, it stinks to lose this wide receiver to Kentucky, but we're not gonna shell. Like, what is the reasoning that they can't make anything happen until you can put offers on paper?
Well, they don't believe, or they believe that these numbers are going to count towards the cap based off of what the settlement is and the nature of these deals. That's what they believe, and that's what they've been told. And so they had a great quote last night. Don't want to butcher it. But he said, don't confuse patience with inactivity. And I think, whether they're right or not, I don't know. But, like, they've doubled and tripled down on this strategy for sure.
Well, let's talk about on the field this fall rather than, on a balance sheet. Jackson Arnold, in my mind, he's the key to, if he can be good enough and not make mistakes that lose games like we've seen really the last 2 years.
Yeah.
This really should be like an 8-win floor team.
Floor?
Yeah,
wow.
Floor might not be the right word just based on the way. I mean, I've said it all week. My biggest issue with Hugh Freeze is he has yet to prove it at Auburn. I don't think he's a great in-game coach, and that team has seemed to find ways to lose for the last 2 years. Again, big part of that is quarterback play, but when Freeze is coming on the podium and saying, we got to get the ball to Jarquez Hunter more, okay, well, you can make that decision, so why don't you?
Yeah. No, I mean, the RPO, the run part of the RPO is something that it feels like it's tough to get to at some point. I do think that aspect changes when defenses have to respect Auburn's passing game more. This year you would have to assume in the last 2 years, one from a quarterback play, but two is like dealing with Cam Coleman, Eric Singleton, Malcolm Simmons, Horatio Fields. Like, if I'm playing against Auburn, I'd rather them run it. And so I think you're going to be able to manipulate that from a defensive point of view by taking, a hat out of the box. So I think we're going to see a lot of that next year.
What needs to happen in the win column and just how it looks? Maybe who do they need to beat for comfortably, we're sitting here a year from now and, Hugh Freeze, there's a lot of momentum going into year 4. There's no hot seat talk, and maybe not, there's always going to be hot seat talk if you're an SEC head coach, but, no hot seat talk. They have a really great season. What does a great season look like in your mind?
Well, you got to beat Baylor to start things off. And, I think you got to find at least 8. I think that's where Auburn needs to be. That's where they are from a roster point of view. And I think if you beat Baylor, you probably get to 8.
Yeah.
Because I think then that shows that you can go on the road and beat a good team. That stint a few weeks later when they go to Oklahoma and to Texas A&M, I think that's going to be tough. If you can win one of those games, you're in a great spot. There's a 5-game stretch between Georgia and Alabama that I think Auburn will be favored in all of those games. They host Missouri. That'll be interesting. They go to Arkansas. That's typically been a place where they play well. So it's like if they can take care of business in the games where they're supposed to, and then beat Baylor, and then one of those other road wins either at Oklahoma or at Texas A&M, like you're in a great spot.
Is a split with Georgia and Alabama realistic?
I don't think so, but I've heard a few people predict that this week.
How much different is 8-4? Let's say you finish with an Iron Bowl victory versus 8-4, and you lose to both Georgia and Alabama. And maybe you get the Baylor game week 1. I feel like. So
you're 7-4 going to the Iron Bowl, and then you win it?
Even thinking about Harsin, had things gone different. Granted, the end result, I think we're all in agreement, would have been the same. But
sure,
they get it done 4 years ago in the Iron Bowl, and who knows how long the tenure lasts.
Yeah. No, if you're 7-4 going to the Iron Bowl and you beat Alabama, I think you're able to do a lot of things from a messaging standpoint to recruits, to boosters, to donors, saying like, hey, we peaked at the right time. Because odds are you've won a lot of those games leading up to it as well, if you're in that situation. So, I think that'd be huge, for sure.
The defense doesn't really get the credit. I think there's some dudes on this team. Obviously, the receiver group understandably gets most of the attention.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the best in the country. But the defense really is probably going to determine what the ceiling actually is. There has to be an offensive improvement. There's going to be, especially in the passing game. But the defense is really going to be the straw that stirs the drink.
Retention is boring.
Yeah.
Keeping, in this age of college football, keeping the guys that you recruited is boring, but it's the most important aspect of it. Hugh Freeze talked about it last night. And Auburn's added a few pieces. A lot of them I think will be depth. They've got some guys that might compete at corner, might compete at linebacker. But this is a unit that has been built from the high school level. And they've been building it since Hugh Freeze got here, and 2 top 10 recruiting classes. A lot of that has to do with what they've done in the front 7 and on the back end. So, I think we see this with everything. Like the new shiny thing in the room is what gets the conversation going, which is Jackson Arnold, which is Eric Singleton. But I'm with you. Auburn's defense last year I think was underrated, especially down the stretch. And I think they're going to be in a prime spot to help them win some games this year, for sure.
Last question for Zac Blackerby, Locked On Auburn. Roster-wise, just top to bottom, obviously, it goes without saying this is the most equipped Freeze has been. In your opinion, how does it stack up to, maybe not the top, the Texases and Georgias of the world, but how does it stack up in terms of just, do you have the guys to go and compete on a day-to-day basis with the best teams in the SEC?
Yeah. Assuming we want to weight quarterback as like a normal position, I mean, I think they're top half in the conference, which with Auburn's schedule, if they're top half in the conference, they're going to win a lot of their games just because of the way, who they're playing this year. I don't have a lot of respect for Missouri at this point in time.
I agree.
Maybe. I mean, I've doubted Drinkwitz ever since he's been there, and he's won a lot of games. So maybe
pulled him out of a hat.
Yeah, maybe that's unfair, but Mizzou, I'm down on. Arkansas, I'm down on. I'm not as high on Oklahoma as a lot of people are. And so I do think if Auburn is top half in the conference with their schedule, they'll, I think they can get to 8 games. Thank you to Michael Bronner and WNSP for having me on. Hope you liked it. Please like the video. Please subscribe, and we will see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.